Charles. We heard from Charles. Okay, I have the okie dokie from the technology. We're streaming, so we'll call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Utah Transit Authority and welcome our trustees and staff. Thank you for being here, and to our audience as well. Members of the public, thank you for coming. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Kathy Griffiths, and then ask Dave Gers for the safety first minute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Trustees, Mr. Chair, thank you very much. I want to reemphasize that this is Rail Safety Week. It is a national rail awareness and safety effort that Operation Lifesaver puts on. So you have the UTA tactile bracelet to remind you on this one to stand back behind the yellow. You have an Operation Lifesaver mini railroad crossing mech device pin, which gets lots of attention as continual reminders that we need to be the safety ambassadors out there and show the good things that we do paying attention around the rail. Also, we had a wonderful article in the Deseret News yesterday. This is Officer Alex Blauer, who's one of our officers, went out with Utah Highway Patrol and did railroad red signal enforcement training and education yesterday in the morning. We did safety fairs yesterday. We did a safety blitz, handing out information and swag on our rail system yesterday and this morning, and we'll be doing that this afternoon. And then tomorrow night, we're at a couple of the high school football games, tossing out red footballs to remind them about safety around rail. Have a couple of my closest friends have also joined us today. I want to just play a couple of 15-second
Hello,
radio
this is Governor Gary Herbert reminding you to be safe at railroad crossings by obeying all signs and signals. Trains have the right-of-way, and they cannot stop quickly. Remember, if you see tracks, think train. Brought to you by Operation Lifesaver Utah.
Hi, it's Kalani Sitaki reminding you to be safe at railroad crossings by obeying all signs and signals. Never go around the lower gates and always wait until the lights stop flashing before crossing the tracks. Remember to look, listen, and live. Brought to you by Operation Lifesaver Utah.
Hi, it's Kyle Whittingham, reminding you to be safe at railroad crossings by obeying all signs and signals. Never go around the lowered gates and always wait until the light stops flashing before crossing the tracks. Always expect a train. Brought to you by Operation Lifesaver Utah.
So it's great to hear Operation Lifesaver mentioned in many, many different characteristics. You'll hear those announcements on the radio. There are also advertisements in the movie theaters next month that we'll have out there. So a good push, a great effort that we have. And again, I have the honor of serving on the Utah Board for Operation Lifesaver. Great opportunity, great educational program. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
For all of those of you under 20 years old that have a cell phone, that's a little attachment you can put on the back of your cell phone and put your important credit cards or business cards. And that way, when you lose your cell phone, you lose all of your credit cards too. But anyways, the important thing about that is if you see tracks, think train.
Thanks, Dave. We have on our consent agenda the items listed. Any question about
I would move to approve the minutes of August 22nd.
Seconded.
Do you want to approve the minutes or the entire consent agenda?
Actually, we could do that. I will amend that to say I move to approve not only the minutes, but the financial report and the Financial and Audit Committee approvals.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Thank you, Trustee DeLay. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. General public comment period. Bob.
Yes, we have one comment card today. Selena Milner.
push it on. Okay. Hello, board members. Thank you so much. My name is Selena Milner. I live at 16 East 200 North, right across from the McCune Mansion. How appropriate that it's Rail Safety Week. My beautiful daughter started college 4 weeks ago, and there was all sorts of emotions. I was very nervous and excited and happy for her and sent her off. And part of what she got for the college that she's going to is a bus card. So she got a free railway card. And so I was like, this is great. This is public transportation. So 4 weeks into school, and she came home last week and said that she was harassed on tracks. And you have a very, Mama Bear is coming out because I'm very mad Mexican-Italian mama. Let me tell you what I posted on Facebook because I didn't know quite how to deal with it. And then I realized that it wasn't just her, it was all of her friends. So 4 weeks into the college year, and my daughter got harassed by a man on tracks. Her friend got harassed by a man on tracks on the red line up to the University of Utah. She had her student ID lanyard around, and it was unwanted advances, unwanted conversation, harassment, so much that then she got to school and he was stalking her online.
So
He had found out her name.
two separate.
These are four separate. And these are all of my good friends. I'm representing three different mamas right here today. And my other friend, I talked to her on the phone and I said, this is what happened to my daughter. She got harassed by a man on tracks. And my friend said, her daughter gets off at courthouse and has to run to her job so that she can avoid being harassed by people in and around the public transportation system. And so I thought, okay, it's happening to four of our daughters 4 weeks into college, and they're all going to four different schools. And at first I was like, okay, I'll organize a self-defense class for all of our daughters to attend because that's who I am. I'm going to organize a self-defense class. And then I thought, okay, we're going to have one of those parties where they sell those damsel in defense products so that we can buy them mace and whistles and tasers and everything like that. And by midnight, I was looking into concealed carry classes for my daughter to go to. And then I just got pissed. I'm sorry, I just got absolutely mad because I did not think that this was something that I had to prepare her for in all of her college preparations. Because I take public transportation to and from all over the place, and so does my mother. My mother doesn't get approached. I don't get approached. I have 30-year-old friends that maybe get approached, but then they're put in their place. But I really think that there is a window of 17 to 24-year-old young women that I think are maybe new to public transportation, a little bit naive, a little bit innocent. They're being targeted. Because what's happening is it's not that they're just being engaged in unwanted conversation and unwanted advances, but they're being peppered with multiple questions. And I think that's what I don't like. My daughter knows. She's been raised by me. She knows how to shut down a conversation, how to be protective of her area. But this gentleman was 10 questions into, well, can I talk to you? Well, can I get your number? Well, do you have a boyfriend? Well, this, well, this, well, this. Every step where he is told she does not want to engage in conversation kept being pushed. And that's what I'm frustrated with, because I'm frustrated that, and each of these young women have had the same similar, where it's not just that they're talked to one time. It's that there is continued pursuant conversation. So I don't know if my time is up, but you've just got one. You know, Mad Mama Bear in front of you.
I'm going to ask you a question, and then your time will be unlimited. How's that?
Okay.
Can you describe the people that are doing this? Is it just a couple of people?
They're different. They're different, do you know what I mean? And so because there were four young women, they're different descriptions, if you will, do you know what I mean? But they're men, and they would probably be mid-20-year-old men.
So about the same age.
About the same age, little disheveled, you know. We understand the population. We live downtown. We're very comfortable riding transportation, and I just didn't think this was going to be an issue that she'd have to face, because she knows how to shut down conversation, but I don't like the aggressive continued approach.
And is this on tracks or buses?
Both.
And at any of these circumstances, did these women report it to either say on a bus, the driver, or was there any presence of UTA police around?
No, because the one that happened on the up to the red line on the University of Utah, it's a long ride from Taylorsville up to University of Utah, and so it was a long ride. She didn't know how to report it, and so what we've done with my daughter is it's an hour and a half up to Weber State on the bus or an hour on Front Runner, and she's been taking Front Runner because she saved a little bit of time. But this week I was like, how about you take the bus, because I need you a little bit closer to the bus driver, because the bus drivers are more conscientious of everybody on the bus. It's almost a little bit more protective. So even we're extending her time on public transportation, because I thought it was interesting that 3 out of the 4 young women, we are single moms, do you know what I mean? And we just do not have the income to look at a car or anything like that for my daughter. But I seriously was like, okay, now I need to move heaven and earth and get you a car so that you don't have to take public transportation.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting that this came up and you guys are having a wonderful rail safety week, but this is 4 weeks into college year. They go to different schools. These young women represent, they go to UVU, one goes to Westminster, one goes to the U of U, and my daughter goes to Weber, which I thought was interesting that just in all of us talking really quick in the first 4 weeks of college, this has happened to all of them.
Can I ask
about?
Was it in the general same area, even though they were going to different destinations? Is it like a certain area where they all cross and you can kind of identify that, or is it
City
across the
Center?
whole line?
It is City Center. So my daughter's incident occurred City Center platform, not on the tracks train, but on the platform. The other young woman works, she gets off at Courthouse and has to run to her job on 600 South.
Expand on that, will you?
Well, I asked that woman to come over, and
more than one person, you're saying, right?
She just has to run through. She just does it. She feels, she gets off at Courthouse. She comes all the way from Utah County, gets off at Courthouse, and then walks to her job over on 600 South. And she works over near Homeland Security. So she's just walking a couple blocks downtown, do you know what I mean? But she reported back to her mom, I have to run from the courthouse exit, do you know what I mean? So that I don't get harassed, talked to, panhandled, anything like that. So now her mom has even changed her job schedule completely, single mom, to take her to work, and in the middle of the day pick her up from work, driving back and forth between Utah County and Salt Lake County so that she doesn't have to go through that. And then the young woman that from Taylorsville, the red line up to the University of Utah, it probably, she was fine Taylorsville to about City Center, and then City Center up to the U was when.
Yeah, and we've had these complaints several times, and one of the problems is that's the free zone. That's where the free zone starts, so anybody can ride. And we put on. I know we have, our chief is here. Yeah, I know we put on extra staff. Maybe could we ask the chief to address this? Would that be appropriate?
I think it's almost just like it's back to school. Do you know what I mean? It's back to school. It's college. I really didn't even think this one ahead, like I have to prepare her for this, because she took public transportation even in high school, but it was in Taylorsville on the bus line and it was fine. And so I reached out to Alex on Facebook. I might have tagged you in my Mama Bear meme post, you know what I mean, where I said what needs to be done, because I just don't like the way that this is going. I don't like the statistics. 1 out of 3 nationally women are sexually assaulted. This is harassment and unwanted, in some cases sexual advances, and I don't want it to go any further.
Well, for certain, Dave, we'll introduce you to Dave Garris, our safety officer, and then our chief is here as well. Thank you for coming forward. This is very, very helpful.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I get with Dave and the chief, and they can talk strategies with you. What's critical for us is to hear about it at the time or as soon as possible afterwards. We need information about where and when as soon as we can get it, because then that allows us to respond.
Yeah,
So
if we were getting reports,
It's like security camera information,
but if we were getting reports that, wow, this is always happening around 8 or 9 in the morning, then these guys can throw a whole lot of security at that. But team effort here
Okay.
to help with that. Because on those trains, you can't talk to the operator. And there's not a UTA employee on every car, so what are we going to do? We have to stop it at the station. And I know they have really good strategies, so let's start there.
And we got those little cards. I went to the transportation conference yesterday at Little America, and we got those little cards, so I gave those to all of them.
Say something.
To text, if you feel uncomfortable calling, they can text and everything like that. But maybe just going forward, you all have many different contacts to all of the local universities. You know, I went to the parent seminar for back to school, and they, graciously were like, yes, you have free ride on transportation, and maybe we just need to review that everybody needs to be a little bit more careful back to college season.
Well, thank you for coming forward. That's very nice of you.
Oh, here comes Mr. Safety himself.
I appreciate all the comments that are said, and the comment about reporting. We can have our officers out there. We have the most presence with our officers at the courthouse station and at City Center. Just two other things that we have out there. So when you're asking about what they can do, you talked about the card that is handed out, but on the UTA website, if you have that on your phone, right at the bottom, it's see something, say something, so you don't even have to remember the number. You just push the button, and it gives you the option to call or text the police. It's on the app. So it's right there on the phone itself. And the other thing, too, is that on all of our rail platforms, we have an emergency yellow call box with a button. Both of those calls go to police dispatch, which is 24/7, 365. There's always somebody there to talk to.
And that's at every stop.
At every platform, there is a yellow emergency call box. You just push the button and you're talking to the dispatcher.
Well,
so for the people that feel uncomfortable or don't know, have them download the app and please give us a call so we can identify when and where.
And maybe that's an public information thing, we have call boxes here, use them.
Is there anything on the actual tracks or front runner in the different compartments where they can hit a panic button or something like that? It says there's an issue in this car.
Yeah, on front runner, there are emergency stops. Not necessarily what we want to have.
Yeah, you don't want to hit that and shut the whole thing down.
On
but
front runner, we have a train host on every train that travels up and down the entire train between every stop. So there's a person in the front runner train. Other than that, on tracks, we do not have. You have to talk to the operator. But again, you can talk to a dispatcher while you're on the train, on your phone, on your app right there.
Yeah, sometimes there may be a situation where they just want to hit not a red button to stop everything down, but a yellow one to say, maybe the host needs to go to this car and see if there's an issue. We have, like at our work, we have a wireless doorbell. So if there's an issue at our front desk, they can just hit that with their hand or their knee or whatever, and then that sends off a doorbell upstairs and downstairs, and we can go and see if there's an issue. And it could be something where somebody's just had a stroke or is being harassed or whatever, that you don't necessarily want to shut everything down.
Yeah, we do have those on all of our facilities at all of our locations inside the buildings, and then the emergency call boxes on the platforms. There's nothing on the train, and that's why we're emphasizing 287-NICE or use the app. Get a hold of us.
Yeah, well,
thanks, sir.
Talk. You guys talk. Good.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anything else, Bob? We'll go then to our committee update, stakeholder and planning committee update. Trustee Milburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our committee met last week, and as you recall, at the conclusion of our board meeting last month, there was an issue brought forward by Trustee Jackson in relationship to some concerns coming from Utah County, and staff and Trustee Jackson have been working diligently on an interlocal agreement with Utah County, and we had this discussion in our committee meeting last week and moved this forward for full consideration of this body. So I'll turn the time over to Mr. Meyer and Trustee Jackson.
Thank you, Trustee Milburn. As Trustee Milburn mentioned, we've been working for several months on this Utah County ILA. This is a culmination of several agreements that have gone over the duration of the project. Starting in 2013, we had a design funding agreement between UTA and Utah County to fund $2.8 million for design costs that was anticipated would be reimbursed. In September of 2014, the Regional Planning Committee voted to approve third quarter funding for the local match and operation and maintenance of the BRT. Again, in September, we had an MOU that outlined the details of that in greater detail. And then in 2014, in December, an interlocal agreement to more, again, formalize that. And those were processes that corresponded with the small starts process with FTA, where they wanted assurances on funding. This now takes it and formalizes it into an interlocal agreement between the two parties. And the key elements are, that as funding becomes available, whether it's from the first quarter or if the county imposes the fourth quarter, it talks about how Utah County gets paid back for their. So this one specifically talks to the fourth quarter. If the county implements the fourth quarter, the loans get paid back first before you would go in and apply any funds to new service. And then any new service or capital requires approval. New service requires a service level agreement between the county and UTA, which we'd agree to, and we would enter into that. Any new capital projects would require approval of the county commission.
What's the impact on our debt?
This is consistent with the plan we had to pay back the debt. So, but if the fourth quarter comes in, it actually gets paid off sooner, a year or two sooner.
Yes, I have just a little brief description for everybody about this. I have a tendency to go into so much detail that everybody ends up surrendering after a while. So I've written down what I'm going to say, so hopefully you won't have to wave your white flag and surrender as I continue on. The new interlocal agreement pays down debt quicker, reduces interest costs by $21 million, and will provide new service sooner than without the interlocal and the new fourth quarter in place. BRT, also known as the UVX, was supposed to be funded by the second quarter sales tax. We currently have 3 different quarters in place in Utah County. When it was the time to come up with $65 million in local match, neither the second quarter nor the first quarter had sufficient cash flow to bond for the $65 million local match, nor the O&M requirements of the to run the UVX system. As Steve said, in 2014, an interlocal agreement was put into place between UTA and Utah County, whereby cash flow from the third quarter cent would be bonded against for the local match and provide O&M for the UVX project. With the agreement, with that agreement, then in the year 2028, the first quarter cent would take over the reigning bond balance by reissuing a new bond, would also start up paying operations and maintenance, and then pay back the third quarter cent for the money that was already spent. Again, the agreement to pay back the third quarter cent was approved in 2014. Now comes the opportunity for the fourth quarter. By state code, 40% of the fourth quarter must be spent on transit. It's about $8.8 million in Utah County for 40% of the fourth quarter. This new agreement that we're talking about today replaces or will enhance the existing interlocal that are in place. But what it does is it removes the first quarter obligation identified in the 2014 agreement. Additionally, it frees up about $6 million per year of the third quarter cent now being spent on the UVX bond and O&M for road projects or other priorities projects. By identifying the new fourth quarter cent funding in the interlocal agreement, it also allows the bond to be paid off quicker, saving $21 million in interest costs, reduces debt sooner, and will provide new service sooner. So essentially what we're doing is there's an agreement where the first quarter would pay back the third. This brings in a new fourth quarter, which then relieves that obligation from the first quarter. So that money is available for transit. This portion of the fourth quarter goes to pay off those obligations required in the 2014 agreement, which then will speed up repayment, will speed up new service, and will save approximately $20 million in interest alone. And I'm happy to answer any questions or go on with Steve.
Mr. Chair, I've got some questions for Trustee Jackson. So the amount that's getting paid back from the first quarter is the 2.8 million initial for the design, and what else? What's the total amount that we're paying Utah County back for?
It depends upon when it would go into place. If it goes into place like we're hoping it will, so that then the money can be received by July 1st of 2019, you would have the total, it's, I think it's 16 million that they spent already through the, you can see that in the orange to the right, 2.8 million design, and then we had some bonding costs in 2017. We have bonding and operations for this last part of 2018, and then we'll have in 2019, we'll have a portion of the bonding plus a portion of the O&M in 2019. This would go into effect July 1st of 2019, and then you would start receiving revenue from that in October.
Of the fourth quarter. And the county legislative body is going to take that on, or are they sticking that to the voters?
I have no idea. The only thing that I do know is that if this interlocal is not in place, then it won't happen.
Gotcha. And then, so, Mr. Meyer, the balance of the fourth quarter, the 40% of the fourth quarter is going to be used for the O&M operations after the 10-year period. Is that kind of the plan, along with the payback of the initial $65 million bond?
So we pay back the bond. We pay as much as we can in the O&M. If whatever's left then could go into new service, continue to pay the O&M, and then additional service or new capital projects.
Well, I'm not done yet. Okay. Sorry. So then, is there a provision? So is it the intent of this is to use the entire 40%?
Yes.
In Utah County? Then the part of the other quarter cents, is that what we're going to use to replenish back the 30 million initial that UTA put back out? Because wasn't it UTA's from the capital budget funded approximately 30 million of that?
That was from our capital budget.
So
that doesn't get replenished. That's how we use those funds.
Well, there's other capital projects that need to be done in the future. I was just wondering if we're continuing to save that type of money from this particular project, since we dumped that used 30 million of that into this particular project.
I guess I don't understand where you're coming from. We had money for that, and we spent that. So as we develop additional headroom in the first quarter, right, as we pay down front runner, or that'd be the second quarter. We pay that down, and there gets to be headroom that becomes available for
other
projects and service in Utah.
So it was expected that in 2028, the first quarter cent would have headroom to be able to do what we talked about paying off the third quarter and continuing on. What this would allow is that prior to 2028, 2019, the fourth quarter could take over the debt payment of the existing bond plus O&M, which is about $6 million, plus pay back, start paying back the $16 million that had already been spent. So that's going to take up about $8.8 million. Additionally, the first quarter cent, and Bob can correct me, should have some cash flow before 2028 that it can additionally put towards this. And so that's why we can have basically prior to 2028, we can have all that debt paid off. How it's done right now, that $65 million bond is amortized out for 30 years, but it's only a 12-year bond.
Yeah, it had a balloon payment.
And so there's a balloon payment of $47 million in 2028, plus this additional payback of what had been spent.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's good.
Other questions?
maybe.
I had a question, what the future vision would be once this was all done, where would be expanding services you mentioned? Do we have an idea here? Where do we go to next, I guess? Question, once this is done.
Yes, so, Bob, do you remember, I was trying to think off of your spreadsheet, I think it was 2028 when we thought there could be some new service with this agreement, where it would be sometime in late 2030s that we would have it without the agreement. And so as part of SB 136, there needs to be a service plan in place. And as part of this agreement for new service, there would be an agreement with Utah County on this service level agreement, which would go to COG to be approved, so that new funding, again, only from the fourth quarter cent, would new projects would be based out of that service level agreement through the COG.
Yeah. Great questions, and much of which we discussed in our committee, and I think really where we came, the conclusion at our committee and why this was forwarded to the full board is if this interlocal is put in place, and if the fourth quarter, and this is really what it's all contingent upon, is whatever transpires with the fourth quarter in Utah County. But it's, I think, in everybody's best interest, if the sooner that the fourth quarter is enacted, then it's better off for everybody. But if I'm not mistaken, these figures are based upon the scenario that this would go to the vote of the people on a referendum next year, and pass, and then it would be implemented. Is that correct?
No.
Or is this based upon assumption that the commission actually enacts it?
It's either or. This scenario that we have in place would require some type of a county commission action prior to March of 2019, so that then the tax commission could be notified. They have to have a 90-day notice, and then the next calendar quarter they can put the tax in place. So this is based off of July 1st, 2019. So if we wait till November of 2019, then it can put in place until 2020.
Right.
And then if it doesn't happen by 2020,
then you lose it.
Then the cities, or 2020, right, then the cities can put it in place and this agreement goes away.
So let me rephrase that then. So it does provide, it's based upon a 2019 deal, and if it is to go to referendum, then there's a process by which earlier in 2019, or 2019, that it has to be placed onto the ballot. So to get to 20, so the ball's really in the court of Utah County Commissioners, but the bottom line is here's an opportunity to pay off debt early and save $21 million.
But there's a lot of local money gained, right? The earlier we do it.
Right. Oh yes. The better you do it, the quick. It's optimal that way. And my expectation is that the county commission would approve this at their meeting on Tuesday.
Can you show us that?
They approve the agreement or
the agreement.
Yeah. But I guess what I'm saying is I anticipate, and from my conversations with Mr. Meyer, that I think both parties are basically in agreement. Just action needs to be taken. But the real crux, once again, and where the ball's in the court is with the Utah County Commissioners. And yes, you're correct, Mr. Chair, that it's not just the transit component, but cities have much to gain or lose in this.
As does the county.
As does the county itself. So
for city road projects,
right? It's close to $8.8 million, $9 million a year extra for transit. So it's kind of, when we talk about replacing this quarter and that quarter and this quarter and that quarter, sometimes that gets lost in the narrative that it is a new quarter, which brings close to $9 million a year more in transit.
Into the system, yeah.
And by the same token, 9 million to cities and 4.5 million to the county. So it's to their advantage.
But there's also, isn't there an interim benefit for cities and counties as well? I mean, the earlier, it's not just that they start this process, but the earlier they start taking this before things kick in.
Yes, so the county gets 100% of the funding until July 1st of 2019. So the sooner that the county puts it in, then they would receive about $2 million per month for that. This doesn't go
month?
About $2 million per month.
So the county would gain 24 million bucks.
Yeah, close to that. Yeah, so it's about 22 if it was put into place as soon as it could have been put in. Now they don't have the opportunity to do it for a full year because we're past that deadline of we have a 90-day plus the next calendar quarter. But it's about $2 million a month in delay. This doesn't go into place until July 1st of 2019. So up until about March of 2019, it makes no difference when the county puts it in to anybody other than the county. After that period, then, because you have that 90-day period in the next calendar quarter, and then when a couple months later you start receiving those funds, it does make a difference after July 1st, 2019, of when it gets put in place, and these numbers would slide then associated with that, up until the point where the cities and towns could enact the tax themselves, and then this agreement doesn't work anymore because you don't have the critical mass of funding available to do that.
Got it.
Mayor, if you have a comment, because I was going to make a motion, so.
I was just, I mean, if everything was perfect, the legislature is given the opportunity to the county to move forward with the legislation that they passed. I think from my conversations with the county commissioners, I think they're of the idea that they are not going to move forward even with this interlocal agreement in place until the vote of the people. That's my impression after several conversations, and that's their option. But I think for UTA County, this interlocal agreement is the right way to go. And with the vote of encouragement that the county commissioners move forward, hopefully with post haste in moving this forward, because the opportunity to really decrease the debt and to find a different funding source for roads and in all the transportation issues, it would afford the county that opportunity if they would just step up and do it. So,
got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a comment, if I could. It appears to me the most important part of the message that I heard was that it will more service sooner and retire debt, yes, sooner. But I'm looking at this service that comes on board for the people of Utah County, and that's the saving grace of this whole system. I applaud your efforts on this, Andrew. I think you've done a heck of a good job.
Thank you, and there has been a lot of time put into it by a lot of different people, and I appreciate them. I just want to make sure that the interlocal agreement wasn't a stumbling block or a barrier for any enactment of the fourth quarter.
Well, and we need to acknowledge Senator Harper and Representative Schultz for their leadership in this, and thanks to Brett and others who are up on the Hill, Andrew and the mayor, to make this happen. So, Representative or Trustee Molesky.
Would it be appropriate to have public comment?
Right. Should we take a motion first? No? Okay.
Okay, so we have Ben Stanley.
Does that be held or just pushed? No. Perfect. Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chair and trustees. Appreciate the chance to speak just briefly on this. I thought Mr. Meyer and Mr. Jackson did a wonderful job of explaining this interlocal agreement. I am Ben Stanley, one of two nominees in Utah County for Utah and Tooele counties to serve on the reorganized UTA Board of Trustees. And in that capacity, I've heard regularly from Utah County elected officials, and I just wanted to add my voice in support of this interlocal agreement. I hear regularly that it is can't come fast enough, that elected officials in Utah County would like to see it, and as Mr. Jackson articulated, I hear time and again that they won't entertain the fourth quarter cent sales tax until this local agreement is in place. So I would just like to share my support for this particular action item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley. Okay, we'll take a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to approve Resolution 2018-9-4.
I have a motion and a second to approve. Discussion. Roll call vote.
Trustee Acerson?
Aye.
Trustee Christensen?
Yes.
Trustee Cregan?
Aye.
Trustee DeLay?
Aye.
Trustee Jackson?
Emphatic yes.
Trustee McConkey?
Aye.
Trustee Molesky?
Yes.
Trustee Milburn? Microphone, please. Trustee Bell?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you.
Voting is unanimous in the affirmative. Thank you for all the work on that. Finance and Audit Committee update. Mary Acerson.
Do we have item 6? Is that?
Beg your pardon?
I wonder if we missed item 6 with the second.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Stephen, you're wearing a gray suit. Easy to ignore you. Anyway, you're up.
I'm up. Okay. So you've received my comments. I had a few things I wanted to highlight. Just people talk about our travel program. Sometimes it pays nice dividends. We had Ogden Mayor Mike Caldwell, Andrew Gruber from Wasatch Front, Abby Osborne from the Salt Lake Chamber, met Sybil and myself, and our consultants in Washington earlier in the month, met with the acting administrator of FTA and her senior staff. We met with staff from the Senate Appropriations Committee for Transportation, staff from Senator Hatch's office, and Representative Bishop. We talked about the Ogden BRT and our grant applications for the Depot District Service Center. About 2 weeks later, we received notification that we've been approved for project development for the Ogden BRT, which is the next step in the small starts process that allows us to complete the environmental work, and any costs we expend from that point are eligible towards the grant. So that was a huge step forward there. And then we, this week, received notification of $11 million for the bus facilities grant towards the Depot District Service Center. So that goes a long way to getting that project going. You may recall we did get a contractor on board for that work, Big D Construction, and they will be starting work soon. On the innovative mobility front, we're doing a test. You may have seen the article and news stories yesterday for Salt Lake City's Ditch Your Car program. And that's a partnership with Salt Lake City, Lyft, Green Bike, and UTA.
Not scooters. Did we pick those 50 people?
Pardon me?
Did we pick those 50 people yet?
Lyft is picking those 50 people. You can apply by September 30th online. So, Jeremy from Lyft had nothing but high praise for our staff. Shana Myron Quinn and Jaron Robertson have done a great job working with them, working through that agreement. So people will receive a Hive Pass, they'll receive a Green Bike Pass, and they'll receive a credit from Lyft to be able to ditch their car and use these other modes to get around. And they do that for a full month and then report back. So we think it's going to be a great test.
Isn't it basically equal $400?
Something like that, yeah. And Jeremy talked about the cost of an automobile is about $9,000 a month, and on average sits a year. $9,000 a year, sorry, and sits for about 96% of the time. Your car costs $9,000 a month. Okay. The last item was the UVX ridership, and you've probably seen the article about that. Daily average weekday ridership's over 9,200 a day. We're we're having some full buses during peak time, and it's just awesome to see. Even though we're still under construction, we're not running the optimum system yet because we're still finishing those platforms in the center of the street section. So we're entirely street running with traffic, and it'll only get better from here. Thank you.
Well, thank you. We'll move now to Finance and Audit Committee update.
Yeah, I'm going to take the liberty to announce some transit systems over in Milan, Italy. Gives me a window to announce that we just had our 6th granddaughter. My wife's over there, and they have a system over there for €9 a week, which is about $12. You can get a code and be able to use bikes to be able to get anywhere in the system and leave your bike wherever you care to leave
Is
it.
that in addition to a transit pass, or is that part
No,
of it?
that's just the bike. But I haven't got all the details from her yet. I've been texting, but she said
You're saying for $12
$12.
a month, you have unlimited access to bikes at different locations.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a month. Yeah, sorry, I said a week, but it is a month. So, and the baby's healthy, and we're good. So, anyway, a little report on our Finance and Audit Committee update. I want to express appreciation to our committee members for their dedication and their willingness to meet and to discuss and ask the hard questions, and hopefully in preparation for you as a full board to act. And at that time, I'd like to call, at least have Paul come up. There are 3 contracts that we had discussions on, and Paul will address the first one, and then Eddie Cummins will do the last 2. Thank you, Paul.
You bet. Thank you, Trustee. I'm Paul Drake. I'm the Senior Manager of Real Estate and Transit-Oriented Development. Thank you, Trustee, here to talk about the contract that we have for a structured parking facility at the Sandy Civic Center, TOD. As Trustee Acerson said, we've talked to the Finance and Audit Committee about that, and again, thank you and to your committee for the discussion and your thoughts looking through all the information. Because the value of the contract is so high by our state statute, we're coming to the board to request approval of that contract. This here is kind of gets you oriented to the site. North is roughly to my right, so the right of the image, and then you can see the tracks platform. It's called out in red. That's the Sandy Civic Center track station. Our bus loop is just to the west there. The buildings at the top of the image, that's the farthest west, are our first phase of apartments. And then the garage.
I still don't know where.
Can I come point? It's really tough.
Where we are from the high school.
Yeah, we're sort of high on this one.
So yeah, is I was going to say north. It's the top of the image, probably a block to the that is west going up. Okay. Sorry, the orientation on this image is there.
Are we east or west of State Street?
We are east of State Street. So
if you go that way, do you go to Larry Miller?
Correct. Yep. So if you get on the train here and head up, this is north. You'll head up to the movie theater, to the stadium, up this way. So anyway, so that's roughly north.
High school's where?
High school, if you come up, this is Beet Digger. It's just this side of this intersection. This is Seagull Lily, Beet Digger, and then the high school is right here.
And State Street is?
State Street, if you continue down Seagull Lily, State Street will be right here.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I apologize for the image. This is the only one I had of the garage. But anyway, so this kind of gives you the orientation. These buildings here have already been constructed, and just west of the corridor is where our next phase of development is, and it does include our park and ride facility. So a little context, some of you have been involved with it, so this might be old information, but some of you are a little newer, but I'll give you the history. In 2010, UTA selected Hamilton Partners as our private development partner to work on the TOD at the Sandy Civic Center track station. At the time, this site was 1,200 stall parking, surface parking lot. So it was the end of the line station, and we had quite a bit of parking supply out there. Since then, we've finished our 2015 project. Front Runner, the extension of tracks, has made this a midline station and reduced the demand at this station significantly. There is, of course, still demand for the local residents, so we need to provide park and ride facility for them. In that, UTA obligated its land around the station, which is roughly 33 acres, as well as a 16-acre lot south of this parcel, which we call the 106th South parcel. All of that to the development effort. In 2014, UTA executed a development agreement with Hamilton Partners, which governed the development of the 33 acres, and then obligated the proceeds of the sale of that 106th South parcel to funding our future parking garage. We've been successful in constructing 4 phases of development. That includes 2 phases of multifamily, which were around 340 units, 60,000 square foot office building for the Division of Child and Family Services, and 150,000 square foot Class A office building across Seagull Lily there. There's also been significant investment in master plan improvements, including the relocation of our bus loop, relocation of a canal, which made this site viable for construction, and then road infrastructure. We're now ready to start on this next phase of development. As I pointed out, it's that area just west of our corridor. It's a mix of uses. Apartments, retail, restaurant, but what we're talking about is UTA's facility, which is a 518 stall garage. 300 of those stalls will be dedicated to transit patrons, and the balance 218 stalls will be for the development. They will be controlled and paid for also by the development. UTA will only cover our pro rata share of the costs. The design for the garage was completed concurrently with the rest of the development so that it was cohesive. The contract is going to be for $5.9 million. That's what was shown on the first slide. Again, UTA is only responsible for its pro rata share, which is 58%, or $3.4 million. Funding for that comes partially from an STP grant, which is $2 million. So again, we need to pay $2 million of that's coming from an STP grant, and then the remainder, $1.4 million and change coming from the proceeds of the 106 South property sale. The contractor that we've selected is Wadsworth Brothers. They're a very capable contractor as far as parking structures go. As the F&A committee pointed out, they were not the low bidder. They were within 3% of the low bid. The reason being is that this was a weighted procurement, so we had 60% weighted to technical and then 40% weighted toward the price. So they came out in overall with a higher score. So again, we request that the board approve the contract as described for the construction of UTA's park and ride facility at the Sandy Civic Center track station, as well as UTA's pro rata expenses as discussed. Is there any questions that I can?
We had a bad experience once with a parking garage and a partner. How is this different?
Why don't you explain what bad experience you're talking about?
Do you want to answer?
This one, let's not go into the details, but this one is very clean. We've been planning this for several years. We have the funding set aside. This is a need that we have immediately for our transit patrons, something that's been contemplated again since the beginning of as we started, gotten involved in this master plan and this master plan development. It's above board.
I think we've taken the lessons learned. We've reviewed this with FTA through the joint development process. This is a very straightforward deal.
So from day one, it's been a contemplation of a shared construction and use with the other owners.
Yes.
That was a big deal, that we had this parking garage. And in fact, we really leaned on the developer to make sure that it happened. We really leaned on the developer to make sure funding was available to make it happen. And so what we're doing now is we're ratifying something that we were absolutely adamant that it happened, and we're doing it clean and above board as has been stated.
At every single one of our stations where we have parking, the parking structures are critical to the success of the development. As I said before, this was a massive parking lot.
Do we have any other shared facilities?
Say that again?
Do we have any other shared facilities?
In fact, all of our other garages are shared. We have one at Jordan Valley, and in the TOD program, they're shared. Over at Jordan Valley, we share the footprint. The bottom floor is dedicated to the development. They paid for their portion. All the upper floors are for transit patrons. At South Jordan Station, where we have another TOD, the upper floor, the majority of the upper floor is dedicated to transit patrons, and then the lower floors are dedicated to the office and hotel uses.
We're also doing a project in West Valley at the end of the line of the Green Line. It's not a transit-oriented development that UTA is directly participating in, but we made our land available so that we share a level and a half or so. We would have a level and a half. The West Valley would have the balance to allow them to build on their own adjacent property a higher density apartment complex.
Was that Hamilton Partners we're working with on that?
I don't know who's doing the West Valley. It's Boulder Ventures on the Jordan Valley project.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So our partner was Hamilton, right?
On this one, it is.
It is
Hamilton partner,
okay.
Correct.
All right. Other comments, questions? Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Bob.
Please.
Oh, no.
Bob, any public comment? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion we approve Resolution 2018-9-1.
Have a motion. I hear a second. Nisha. Discussion. Call for a roll call vote.
Trustee Christensen? Yes. Trustee Cregan?
Aye.
Trustee DeLay?
Aye.
Trustee Jackson?
Yes.
Trustee McConkey?
Yes.
Trustee Molesky?
Yes.
Trustee Milburn?
Aye.
Trustee Acerson?
Aye.
Trustee Bell?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Thank you. The motion carries. Let's go now. Eddie, do you want to give prelude? Eddie, welcome.
Thank you. I have two contracts for you today. The first contract is a revenue contract for paratransit service with the Utah Department of Human Services, Division of Services for People with Disabilities. This is an extension to our current contract for another year. Contract amendment value would be $1,742,772, and that would bring the total contract value to $9,454,976.
Is this system-wide?
Yes, sir.
Even though you're Region 1? So, okay.
Yes, sir. System-wide.
Thank you. Any questions or comments of Eddie?
I do have one question. As I read the contract, is it standard just a 30-day notice by either party to discontinue the contract? Is that's standard throughout the industry? Is it?
It is. It's standard.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. And this is historic, right? We've done this for how long?
We've had it for quite some time. The current contract's a 2012 contract. We're extending it for another year while we're working on the terms of the new contract.
Great. Thank you, Eddie, for your work. Okay, there's no public comment.
Mr. Chair, having read the information in the packet, I move we approve Resolution 2018-9-2.
Second? Second. Discussion? Roll call vote.
Trustee Cregan?
Aye.
Trustee DeLay?
Aye.
Trustee Jackson?
Yes.
Trustee McConkey?
Aye.
Trustee Molesky?
Yes.
Trustee Milburn?
Aye.
Trustee Acerson?
Aye.
Trustee Christensen.
Aye.
Trustee Bell.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. The motion passes. Eddie?
So this is a change order to our on-call. This is actually a task order with our on-call contract with Stacy Whitbeck, but we felt that it fit within the definition of the change order, so that's why we're bringing it to the board today. This is a stated good repair project for removal and reconstruction of the 400 South Half Grand Union section. This section is located, as you can tell on the map, at the intersection of 400 South and Main Street. Project will replace a 20-year-old track, upgrade switches, signaling, and communication. Construction is scheduled to begin in early May and take approximately 25 days. Change order value is $4,017,940 with a total contract value after change order of $25,671,123.
So is this Maine?
It is.
So that's for
South
security.
and Main.
Is that for security at the bottom?
Not anymore for security. It's like 30 years ago.
The aluminum
Yeah, that
building, right?
I think it's Washington Federal on the main floor.
The old
is that
the Moss Courthouse on the
yes, it is.
right.
Is that going to? That is one of the most hideous places for train screeching. Can you address how that's going to help there?
So with replacing the track, and Barry, do you want to speak to that? I'll bring up the expert.
It'll be a higher pitch, so you won't. For most of us, we won't be able to hear it. No, go ahead.
Yeah, when we replace that track, it'll be all new track, and it should be. We may need to be grounded to reduce the abrasion, but it should reduce the squeal on that corner as well.
And is that because of a different kind of track, having lived on a corner of intense screeching?
No, I think it'll just be brand new track with new. I don't know the terminology, but the way it'd be inlaid, it will be newer. And we have added water spray to our tracks, and that has been helping the wheel squeal. I don't know if you've noticed it, but that has been helping, and that will be through that intersection as well. We would continue that.
Thank you.
We stood at your intersection the other day, and I explained the dilemma to my wife, and she was very sympathetic to your issue.
With this being a state of good repair project, what percentage of this is going to be federal funds? Is this part of that block that we see that will be essentially providing more additional state of repair funds from the FDA?
I believe this is all locally funded. It's part of our state of good repair. This is something we talked about, during our budget meeting last week. This is one of the projects in our 2019 plan.
What's Grand Union?
The description of the track
referred to
configuration.
that area.
No, it's the track configuration. So this is a half grand. It's got 3 legs. If it had 4 legs, it'd be a full grand. That's
Are you making that up?
No. Are you kidding me?
Okay.
How could I make something like that?
Questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Mr. Acting Vice President.
Yes, sir, Trustee Molesky.
Yeah. I emphasized acting, just so you know.
What did he say?
So I was just curious because I didn't have a chance to attend this meeting. I was trying to, but my question was from the original $21 million bid and price and design, why there was an additional $4 million that was necessary and what was not foreseen in the original project.
So completely different. That's what I was trying to emphasize at the beginning. This is a task order to our on-call contract with Stacy and Whitbeck. So it's not that this project cost $25 million. That's how much that contract's been with all the on-call services that we've had them do for us.
Okay.
What's the next intersection that's going to be replaced?
That is a good question. Do we have anything? Do we have an intersection, another section in our plan? Did you hear that? Delta interlocking.
Repeat it for the record and on the mic. Will you tell us your name also?
Yeah, Mary Di Loretto, in capital projects. We're going to be replacing, and actually this will happen before the Main Street intersection. We're going to replace the the 150 South interlocking on Main Street, because that will allow our trains to turn back, because they won't be able to go through that intersection. 150 South and Main, and then the Delta.
That's City Creek.
Yeah, and then the Delta, at the Delta Center. Okay. We'll be to that one next.
All righty. Thank you. And generally, how long does these kind of projects take? Month? 6
This
months?
project, we're projecting about 25 days.
That's great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okie dokie.
So the record, we got to make sure it's the Vivint Smart Home Arena at the Delta Center, and then the Wells Fargo, it's a different one as well, so.
Yeah, Mayor.
I was just going to make the motion that we approve, and they took it down, R 2019-0903.
Have a motion. Is there public comment, Bob? Okay.
May I ask, is this supposed to be 2019 or 2018? 2018. I know. Yeah, I think it's supposed to be 2018.
Yeah.
So I'll amend my motion to go with the slide 2018-0903.
I would second that.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. Discussion. Roll call vote.
Sorry. Trustee DeLay?
Approve? Yes.
Trustee Jackson?
Yes.
Trustee McConkey?
Aye.
Trustee Molesky?
Aye.
Trustee Milburn?
Aye.
Trustee Acerson?
Aye.
Trustee Christensen?
Aye.
Trustee Cragen?
Aye.
Trustee Bell?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. The motion carries. Thank you, Eddie. We have no business for closed session. And is there other business? Mr. Meyer? Anyone else have any business? Anybody object to terminating our meeting before 4:30?
You want a motion to adjourn?
Okay, there is one deal here, and that is, go ahead, Danny.
It looks, I'm looking at our calendar for the month of October, and I see meetings here on the 10th and the 25th. Is that correct? That's a Wednesday and a Thursday. And that's the end of the meetings for this body. Is that correct?
10th is committees, and the 25th, Wednesday the 25th, Thursday the 25th.
Thursday, the 25th.
Is our last, final, ending, complete, finish, yeah, meeting. There may be a social event to celebrate our lame duckness.
I love it.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I think we ought to acknowledge that Carlton came and
Beth.
Oh, I didn't see Beth.
And Mr.
Well, see, there's a sign between me that says UTA Transit Authority. So.
Yeah, and Mr.
By the way,
Stanley.
it's District Carlton, right?
Anyway. Well, yeah, thanks, Mr. Stanley, and to Beth and Carlton. We appreciate your interest, and good luck, huh? Okay. Are we doing anything about it or anything? Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your attendance.
I made the motion to adjourn.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Well done, Mr.